Ah, 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 ah. Suicide Squad is written and directed by David Ayer, and it stars the likes of Will Smith, Margot Robbie, Jai Courtney, Jared Leto, Joel Kinnaman, Viola Davis, Cara Delevingne. Amazing cast of actors in this film, and is based off the DC comic book series. And what this film is about is the government are tasked with recruiting and assembling a group of villains that they wish to turn to heroes to fight off what could possibly be the next Superman. Like the government are very concerned about the next Superman. They felt they were very lucky with what Superman was, that he was good and he wanted to protect people. Some people, yeah, the government are thinking, well, if someone else comes along like that, there might be some problems. He may be kind of evil, and so we need to assemble a team to be able to fight off this threat. And yeah, and so they recruit people like Deadshot and Harley Quinn, lots of characters we know and love. And so I was looking forward to this film because, of course, it being a DC film, and I'm a big DC fan. Also, as I said, the cast is phenomenal. And however, when I went into this film, I was a bit kind of on the uncomfortable side because I was completely green. Like, I have not a clue about any of the Suicide Squad stories. I haven't read any of the comic books. I know of some of the characters involved, like Harley Quinn and Deadshot and Killer Croc and all that. I know some of the characters are involved, but I didn't know anything about sort of like how they came together, what their stories were. So I went into this film, yeah, hoping to see a really, really fun and different comic book film. And this film is dividing critics and audiences. People are trashing and hating this film. Some people have fallen in love with this film and think that the critics are just backlashing it way too hard, and other people have kind of fallen in the middle. And that's where I've landed on this film, because when I initially left the theatre, or the cinema, I was blown away by this film. But then, when I started to write my notes down and I took a look at what some of the critics were saying about it, just to see what their opinions were, and I'm not one of those people who just sides with the critics to be safe. Rent, one of my all-time favourite films, is a film that was trashed by critics. There are loads of films that I love that were trashed by critics, so I'm not one of those people who just sides with critics to be safe. But after doing some thinking about what the critics have said and afterthoughts of this film, I kind of think the critics are all kind of right on this one. I do think it's a film to enjoy. There are plenty of things to enjoy, like, let's start with the pros. Performances, off the chart. Will Smith is terrific as Deadshot. He really, really surprised me. He had a lot of humanity to his character. Of course he was a badass. He really rocked the costume. It was just, yeah, he was awesome. And he had great chemistry with Harley Quinn. Played magnificently by Margot Robbie. Some of the best casting in a comic book film I've seen in a while. She nails every aspect of this character, and there are some really great flashbacks between her and the Joker. The Joker, Jared Leto, this was something that was really, really causing a lot of panic over some people. I wasn't sure how he was going to do, but I think he did well. What I liked is he did his own thing with the role. He hasn't imitated anyone, and I think that's one of the reasons why Joker has stayed such a popular character, is because he's still fresh. Because every actor who takes on this character is doing something different with this role, so he always feels fresh whenever we see him. And Jared Leto did a really, really good job. He reminded me of Heath Ledger in some points, but he was very different from Heath Ledger. He was much more of a slick, well-groomed Joker. Whereas, yeah, and he did a really good job. The problem is, he's not in this film a lot. He's in the film for about 3 scenes. When he's in the film, he's really good, but he is in this film very, very he's got a very minimal role in this film. And I thought about this, and I thought, why is Joker such a small character? And I think, this is my guess at this, I don't know why he's such a small character in this film, I don't know the real reason, but this is my guess. The film is called Suicide Squad, and so we want this film to concentrate on the Suicide Squad. Of course we want to see Joker, so they push Joker to the side so we can concentrate on the Suicide Squad. It's a dangerous move because of how popular and how loved and just how great of a character Joker is, but we do want this film to concentrate on the Suicide Squad, which it does. There's some really great character development in this film from Deadshot and Harley Quinn. Also, the action is terrific in this film. Really, really well done by David Ayer. This film looks terrific. I mean, the CGI is incorporated very, very well. It's just a lot. It's got really fun action scenes. However, they are very flashy at times. And I'm not kidding. I sat in the front row of a packed theatre when I saw this film. So I was right at the front, and I was looking up at the screen and seeing and watching so many bullets fly on the screen and all that. It's so flashy, and it actually caused my eyes to hurt a little bit. It's a little too much at times. This, but overall the action's really, really good. Well done, David Ayer. You are a good director of action. Let's talk about some of the problems with this film. The editing. It's not a very well edited film at all. This film is a first act and a third act, a very elongated third act, pushed together with nothing in between. There's like 20-25 minutes of character setup, of literally exposition, telling us everything we need to know about some of these characters, and then as soon as that finishes, these characters are grouped together and thrown into the war zone, and that's where the rest of the movie is. There's like nothing in between, and this leads me to one of the problems with character development. Like I said, there's some good character development in here when there is some, but there is an extreme lack of character development in here, because Boomerang, played very well by Jai Courtney, he really, really surprised me. He did a really, really good job. Killer Croc, Kitana, I believe is her name, the one with the sword. Yeah, they're not developed at all. They're introduced. We know a very, very, we know like a pinch of salt about them, but that's it. They don't get developed at all. This film really concentrates on a select few of the squad, which is a problem because this is the type of film that, it's a film that is tasked with setting up and developing so many characters, because it's an ensemble comic book film. Yeah, and this film's only like 2 hours, and I think this film should have been a bit longer, should have been quite a lot longer actually, because of how many characters are in this film, and we need to know a lot more about these characters. That being said, the chemistry between these actors are fantastic. These people work really, really, really well together. Let's talk about Joel Kinnaman as Rick Flag. Wasn't on board with him to begin with. Joel Kinnaman's a likeable actor. I don't have anything against him as a person or an actor. In this film, he's fine. You know, he's just fine. He's not anything mind-blowing as this character, but he's not terrible as this character. The problem, it wasn't really with him. It's just the way he was portrayed. He wasn't likeable. And the film dedicates quite a bit of backstory to him, and which I won't spoil. He's a very important character in this film, and I just wasn't behind him because he wasn't portrayed very well. And I understand he is tasked with leading this squad, and of course him, being a good guy and them being bad guys. It's difficult. I understand he's not in the nicest of places, but he just wasn't that likeable. He was a badass in the action scenes, but he just wasn't a very compelling character. Not at all a compelling character. He really started to grow on me, and I started to latch onto him when there were about 15-20 minutes left in the film. Right at the end, I really started to get behind him, and that's not good, because he's one of the major characters, and this film really wants you to like him. Yet he just wasn't portrayed very well to begin with, but yet at the very end I did latch onto him. Also, this was something critics brought up, and I didn't think about it to begin with, but the whole mission the squad is on is kind of ridiculous. I hear apparently in the Suicide Squad comics they're much more simple and kind of realistic missions for this. If you don't know the villain of this film, because the trailers are very shrouded about what this film actually is, the villain of this film, it's not a spoiler. It's not a spoiler. The villain of this film is Enchantress, who is a witch from another dimension, who is controlled by government, but of course she's now been unleashed, and she's partnered up. She's released her brother Incubus, who's this gigantic wizard. Very stereotypical superhero film, but yeah, I mean, it's just, and they're godlike people. They are people with extreme powers, and yet the people who are tasked, the people they task this mission to, they only have, Diablo and Killer Croc are probably the only people in this team that could probably take on these characters. I mean, and why isn't the Justice League tasked with the metahumans? Why that are known in this film? The government know about the metahumans in this film. Why didn't they task them with this film? It was something the critics brought up, and I was just thinking, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that? That's very, very true. This villain, this mission should have been a lot more. It should have been more simple, and it should have been a lot more grounded. It shouldn't have been, a big, magical villain, with powers and very godlike. It should have been some real. It should have been some normal people. It should have kind of been a bust, a kind of crime bust kind of type thing. But that being said, Cara Delevingne did a good job as this character. By the end, she did start to overcook it a bit. She starts to, right at the end, she starts to kind of dance, like this weird voodoo belly dance, when she's delivering her lines. It's like, what are you doing? It's very weird, and it's very, very distracting. But she did a good job with this character. There's some really nice cameos from certain characters. I'm not going to spoil, but there are some really cool cameos in this film. Another good thing about this film is that it ties in very well with the DC universe. It's not as reliant on other films, It is telling its own film. However, its own film is very bare bones, because the majority of this film is basically an action scene with 20-25 minutes of character setup for only a few characters, which is kind of a problem. Also, the film's very well paced as well. That's one thing I will say. It's very well paced. This film should have had more to it. It should have had a much more realistic mission, more character development. This film should have been longer. I do wonder, I seriously wonder, I mean, David Ayer has even said that this is his vision of the film, but I do wonder whether there will be an extended cut released of this film, very similar to the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman. I've yet to see that. I do want to see the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman, but I wonder if there's going to be like an extended cut of this film that's like at least an hour, that's like probably at most an hour longer, so we can actually get a second act and more character development. The film is just not what it could have been. It is very disappointing on many levels, but I still think it's an enjoyable film overall. I'm going to give Suicide Squad a B-. Well, those are my takes on. That's my take on Suicide Squad. Let me know what you thought about this film below. I also think this soundtrack was really good. I'm one of the few who actually did like the soundtrack. I thought there was a good choice of songs. I'm not going to spoil, but I kind of like the soundtrack. Sorry, that was something I meant to mention. Yeah, let me know what you thought about the soundtrack, because it's dividing people. Let me know about what you thought of the film. Let me know about anything you thought about this film. In the comments. I will see you in my next reviews. I'm going to be reviewing both seasons of The Office, leading up to the UK Office, leading up to David Brent, Life on the Road. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm sorry I've had to put these Superman reviews on delay a little bit, because of course I've had loads of other new releases and other films to review, but don't worry, my Superman series is coming soon. I will have reviews for them soon, but I will see you in the next video. Phantom Film Buff, out!